All right, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of the Teardown. My name is Jeff Gluck, along with Jordan Bianchi. We are motorsports writers for The Athletic, and we are 1 week into the NASCAR offseason, and it feels pretty surreal. My week was completely thrown off all week, Jordan, because we attended the NASCAR Awards on Tuesday. You took a little trip to Minnesota. I flew home Wednesday. And then normally I'm getting home Monday after a race. So my whole body was thinking the whole week, oh, it's the start of the week. And then all of a sudden, here's the weekend. Here I am on my couch watching football. That was nice. I was just like, whoa, suddenly we look up and the season's already been over for a week. But man, what a whirlwind there to end the year, huh?
It's crazy. It's like today was like the first day of like, wow, the off season is here, and it's very truncated too. There's that federal trial that's just a few weeks away. That who knows if that'll take place, and it's been a long year. It's been a crazy year. It felt like storyline wise, and we'll dive into this much deeper in our other shows and everything like that. But it's like the two biggest storylines this year were kind of almost off track. Playoff conversation for most of the year, and then lawsuit, and it wasn't so much competition focused. And now that we're in the off season, it's like, it just, you look back and you're like, this season's a blur. Like what, what happened on the track?
Well, as you mentioned, we're recording this on Monday, November 10th, Monday morning. And 3 weeks from today, the trial is scheduled to begin in Charlotte. So they have 3 weeks. Of course, they could come up with the settlement even after the trial begins, but I will be on a plane 3 weeks from yesterday if there's no settlement before that. So, man,
there was close. I mean, they were very close to a settlement not too long ago, and so these parts of this ebb and flow nature. So we'll see what transpires. But you can read about in The Athletic. But there have been some big court rulings recently, and that has certainly, my understanding, has swayed some thinking on some things.
Jordan, we were on our way to the NASCAR Awards the other night, and we were talking about a question that I had put on X, and it got a crazy amount of responses because, as everybody knows, the day after the whole weekend, the day after, there was like just this, I don't know, malaise or just this sort of a very unsatisfying feeling over the NASCAR community, I would say, of how the season turned out, just the way that the champion is decided, and just all these issues that sort of came to a head at Phoenix. So I said, and like we talked to friends and people in the industry, and a lot of it's like, man, this fan base is so angry. They're so unhappy. They're so negative. So I want to know, how does it get fixed? How does this move forward? How does this get to a point? I'm not saying that NASCAR fans will ever be happy. Maybe they will. No. But how does it get better? How does it get to the point where NASCAR has its nature is healing moment with the core fan base? So I put this on X. I got 1,700 replies.
That's a crazy
so
number.
Far. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the most I've ever gotten on any tweet ever. And I asked Gluck to summarize it, which the power of AI, and look, nothing surprising here, but it was mostly, the common themes were full season points, ditching the playoffs, ditching winning in, boosting horsepower, fixing the car for better racing and tire wear, eliminating the stage cautions, but keeping the stage points, ending overtime green, white checkered finishes, which was interesting. And improving the TV broadcasts in terms of more access, better TV, you're not having to find different channels, better coverage overall. And it ended by saying fans seek legitimately and fun over chaos. So Jordan, you had a great idea to say, you know what, why don't we, that's what that's sort of the standard things, but why don't we come up with our ways to fix NASCAR, to solve this problem? So if we were given the Brian France power, I think that today it's a lot more of a committee and more of like a, I don't know that one person has, I don't know that one person has this overarching power to push things through in modern day NASCAR, the way that everything's structured today. But let's go back and just for fantasy world, if we had this genie-like power, Brian Francis sitting there and he says, I'm putting Jeff Gordon in the chase as 13th driver thing, right? What would we do? So we're each going to give our platforms here. Now, I haven't heard Jordan's. He hasn't heard mine. We have not exchanged our ideas on this yet. So this is going to be news to me, although I can make some guesses, I guess, on what Jordan will say, what I will say. So we'll have Jordan go first. And then I will try to take some notes during that and respond to give a few rebuttals to his. And then I will give my platform in the second half of this episode.
Okay.
So without further ado, everybody, some people's nightmare, Jordan.
No, actually,
Jordan has been the czar of NASCAR, the man with all the power. Jordan, how will you fix this sport that we all love?
I actually confidently feel like most people are going to be pretty on board with a lot of my stuff. It's not radical at all. I really don't think that for the most part. So I'm going to start with this. I have 5 categories. I separated them out into schedule, team specific issues, playoffs, competition, or the business side. You tell me, Jeff, which direction you want to go first.
No, I don't have it. This is not a a committee anymore. You're the man in charge now.
I'll start at the low hanging fruit, and let's start with the schedule. And this is pie in the sky, and I understand there's economic issues and everything like that, and we'll have to figure that out. But one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the schedule. 38 races, 36 points races plus 2 exhibitions is a lot. It's a very long season that basically goes from February to mid-November. I am going to reduce the schedule by reducing second dates at Las Vegas, Kansas, Phoenix, Darlington, Bristol, Atlanta, and Martinsville. That puts us down to 29 races. And so I then would have a floating 30th date somewhere that will be something different, whether that's in Montreal or Mexico City or whatever else, if we want to do something. And so we're going to reduce the schedule to 30 points races. We're also going to move the Clash back to Daytona and make that part of the midweek build up to the race, like a Wednesday night. Thursday nights are the duels. Let's do Tuesday or Wednesday night Clash. We talk a lot about how we want to give races like a big feel and build up and everything. Having the Clash at Daytona, I think will do that and get people excited for the Daytona 500. Also gives us another week in the offseason, Jeff, which I think is really important. And so I don't want to lose the feel for Bowman Gray and going to places like that or the Coliseum. I think that's invaluable, and I think it's really important. But that is what the All-Star race is going to be about. The All-Star race is going to be about going to Bowman Gray or South Boston or the Coliseum or things like that. Imagine the All-Star race at a venue like that. I think that's electric and exciting, and it's going to get people talking. So that's one thing on the schedule. The San Diego date is going to be floater. Like some days it'll be in San Diego, but that's going to be moved around the country into bigger markets, trying to get that feel, if you will, that pop, get people talking. And then this is the last thing, and I think we're all universally going to agree on this. Get rid of the damn Roval. That Charlotte playoff race, man, is going back to the Oval. So that is what I want to do with the schedule. Fewer races, less tracks, have fewer dates. That way, when you go to Vegas or Kansas or Phoenix or Darlington or Bristol, it feels like a big deal. It's like, man, this is our one stop there. Let's push people there and get that excited. And honestly, if a track shows that, hey, they're selling tickets and people in this market are excited and it deserves 2 dates, then I'm all for having that conversation about bringing a second date there. But most tracks deserve just 1 date. So that's where I'm at on the schedule. Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I want to hear your whole platform first.
You want the whole platform? All right.
Yeah, because I have a whole. Well, mine it doesn't sound as extensive as yours. Actually,
I had a lot of time.
I guess. But, yeah.
This is team specific, and again, I understand pie in the sky. I want to reduce teams. I want to limit teams to 3 cars and 3 cars only. No 4-car teams. Ideally, I would love to go even further and go to 2-car teams. I just don't know that might be a bridge too far. So I want to go to 3-car teams, and I also want to severely limit technical alliances. I want to make sure I want to send these teams along. I want to create parity in this sport. I want to create excitement. I want to make it where the teams are more level. If you look at the sport right now, we've talked about it so much. Joe Gibbs Racing and Hendrick Motorsports dominate it to an excessive degree. Throw Team Penske in there, obviously, with the championships and the playoff success. But on a week-to-week basis, it's a lot about Hendrick. It's a lot about Joe Gibbs Racing. I want to see teams like Trackhouse and Ross Chastain almost won the championship. That was a cool moment. So that is one thing I want to do, is reduce the number of teams that they have, and then also reduce the technical alliances that come from that, because I think that will help go to create parity. The other thing I'm going to do, I'm creating a spending cap. It's been long talked about in this sport. Formula One has done something of that nature. It's not easy to do. There's a lot of things you kind of have to work around, but let's figure this out. Let's sit down and figure out a team spending cap. There is a huge disparity between the big teams and the small teams in terms of personnel and money and resources. Let's try to narrow that down a little bit. I understand the big teams are always going to be the big teams and they're going to dominate. You can see that even in Formula One, right? But I want to try to create an avenue where a mid-sized team hits on something, or they've got smart people and are great drivers, and they're able to contend for a championship. And I don't want that. You don't need it every year, but I want to at least have the opportunity for these teams to have their moment where if they hit on it, they can have that moment in the sun, if you will, where the big teams just aren't dominating your thing. And the other thing about this, and this is team, is the charter system remains intact. I would give more money to the teams. They deserve more money. I understand that. It's complicated. The charter system remains. The guaranteed entry into every race is important. They need to know that. They need the financial assurances along with that. And so that is what I want to do on the team side of things.
All right. I'll let you take a breath. Sorry.
No, go ahead. It's a long list, man.
I should have told you that you could take a breath between each section. I'll try to respond.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to.
But yeah, I'm sorry. So first of all, your schedule point, I've been taking notes here. I don't know how I feel about reducing the schedule that much. Yes, I see the value in it, but I also think, like, I would rather, I don't know if it's the number of races or the number of weeks. And if I was in charge and I could just say, hey, I'm doing whatever I want, sorry, TV partners, I don't really care about your ratings. I think I would, do some Wednesday night races in the summer and try to get the schedule shortened that way. Rather, I just don't know if it's the number of races that bothers me, because I think if the races are good and you make the races entertaining, this fan base will stay engaged. I just think once you get into, the more you go up against the NFL on these fall Sundays, it's just such a tough, nobody's beating the NFL anymore. So no matter how great your sport is, and the fact that NASCAR is even getting a couple million against the NFL directly head to head on Sundays is still something these days. But so I don't know how I feel about that. I do straight up disagree with your one on the Clash moving Daytona. I know that's gaining momentum in terms of popularity among the fan base. So that'll probably resonate, get some more points for the fan base with you than me. But I liked what NASCAR discovered with the LA Coliseum Clash, that you could really make this a marquee preseason event and really get people excited if you used it the right way. Remember that Clash the first year? I mean, you had the whole city of LA talking about it, and it was leading into the Super Bowl, and it was right coming off the heels of the Super Bowl. And, it was like, man, like this is a big thing. And no, maybe it was leading into the Super Bowl that year. They did that, and then they took a break from the Super Bowl, right? And it was both on Fox, and the Super Bowl was in LA that year, right? Yeah. And so you had this great synergy. And that was like, man, this is, and the ratings were huge for that. And it was like, this is really cool. And if you could keep it fresh enough to really move it, do a stadium series or whatever it is, it seemed like that sort of petered out, and they found, so yeah, I get the Clash now at Bowman Gray. It was cool, but it wasn't like we're drawing a ton of attention for Daytona 500 for this. If you could use it for a Daytona 500 promotional tool, the Clash should run its course, I thought, at Daytona in terms of super speedway. Those last few, I mean, the attendance was terrible for the Sprint Unlimited and all those. And, it was just, and you'd tear up some cars. Nobody wanted to wreck. They'd ride around, they'd crash on the last lap. And you're like, man, this was dumb. So I don't really love the idea of moving it back there. Obviously I do agree with your getting rid of the Roval. That is the lowest hanging fruit on the schedule, in my opinion. In terms of your team things, the no 4-car teams is interesting. I don't know how you do it. I guess you'd sort of give them a year or two to wind down, like you did sort of with Roush, right?
Yep.
You said, hey, you got to get rid of your 5th team here. The limiting the technical alliances, I will disagree with in the sense that, like, I don't see how that's really benefiting the bigger teams. I think that's actually propping up some of the teams like Aspire, right? Like, and because you're saying, here, Aspire, here's some information, and we're getting you more competitive than you would be if you were on your own, right? Or 2311 even, right?
Yep.
Like, so that actually helps those teams be more competitive with the bigger teams, I would argue.
Okay.
The spending cap was going to be one of mine as well. I think that is a great suggestion and something that could be implemented, as we've seen in F1.
Yep.
You get the financial accountants in there and the auditors in there, and they know how to look for all the things, and try to find what teams might be hiding, and have big penalties if you go around that in any way, even for catering. So, and then the charter system, I totally agree with that. I think the charter system has actually been a good thing. I understand people going, oh, I miss the days where you just have to race your way in.
No.
There's not enough cars showing up anymore. And the charter system is clearly adding tremendous value in terms of outside investors coming in and making this sport a big time sport. I'm going to look this up as I'm talking here. There was a new NWSL franchise awarded, I think, to Atlanta. It just came out yesterday.
Yep.
The expansion fee for an NWSL team, that is women's soccer, the expansion fee was $165 million. That's for women's soccer, which is not does not have the same viewership that NASCAR has, and is not on doesn't have the widest TV distribution compared to NASCAR. A lot of their games are on, I think, like CBS Sports Network and things like that, right? So you're paying $165 million for a startup women's soccer team, and currently the top NASCAR charter is worth 50 million, maybe 60 million or something. I mean, I guess
level,
it's the lowest
level right now is 50 million. It would be fascinating to see if a Hendrick or Joe Gibbs or Penske put one of their charters on the market and what that would fetch.
Yeah, but it's probably not, we're talking 60, half of, certainly less than half of what this women's soccer team feed is sold for. So to me, what that says is, again, there's a lot more value to come in NASCAR if you can build this charter system. So I agree with you on that point. All right, please continue with your
real quick, a couple quick points. I agree with you on the midweek races. Like, I'm not opposed to midweek races. I like the idea of midweek races, especially in the summer, because a lot of families on the weekends are at the cabin or they're out, vacation, stuff like that. Having a race on a Wednesday night, I love the idea. So when I put together this list, I reached out to a bunch of crew guys and stuff like that. And almost universally, they're like, you have no idea the burden it puts on us to do a midweek race, because we're racing on a Wednesday night. We still got to get cars ready for the next week. It's a lot. And so that was my thought. I'm okay with doing one or two if you can figure it out, especially if you can do it here in the Charlotte area, maybe in North Wilkesboro or something like that, where it's easier. But I was thinking about the burden on the crew guys and everything like that. On the technical lines thing, I agree with you to an extent. It does prop up teams. Wood Brothers is a really good example of that. But you mentioned Spire, and this is what I had in mind. It's more of a me thing than anything. And I know Spire is okay with it, but I don't like seeing, like, when a Hendrick Motorsports, for example, has a crew member or two crew members suspended, right? And then they go and pluck crew members from Spire Motorsports, stuff like that. And that's like, it makes it feel very minor league-ish, you know what I mean? And I don't want to see that. This is supposed to be big time racing. Every team should kind of be on its own. And I don't want to see my crew guys being plucked away by another team. And that just, again, it goes back to my thing of, the bigger teams have all these inherent advantages, and that's another one that they have. And that's where I think of my mind goes when I hear technical alliances.
That's fair. I mean, some of the pit crews, they even supply pit crews for teams that are from other manufacturers, not even the same manufacturer. So, and I agree, but that would be a very complicated thing to pull off in terms of you would have to, like JGR, they need to have a bench for 4 teams, right? So you would have to say, hey, pit crew guy, I'm going to pay you to basically sit on the bench instead of going to be a pit crew guy for Roush, or I'm going to gobble you up, pay you to sit on the bench, and then maybe call you up as a backup guy, and you're not going to be getting reps, you know? And then you'd almost have a bidding war from the teams to keep these pit crew guys away and say, we need you on our bench, and you'll be so valuable, you know, if there's a suspension or an injury. And so then how are the smaller teams supposed to compete with that? You know, because
but that could be
they're
part
like,
of the
well, we'll give you a
cap,
chance
though.
to start, but that's true. That's true.
That could be part of the spending cap. And I agree with you.
That's
And
true.
I mean, there are people out there, I think, but, you know, our friend Bozy has even said this of like, and this has actually been talked about among teams about being able to trade crew members, like pit crew guys like that, you know. Now there's complications and all sorts of things like that. And you almost need like a players union type thing to kind of monitor this. But I hear what you're saying, you know, the rep thing and everything like that. But again, I get to be in charge. I'm going to figure this out. Like, I know these are very broad things, and I know you'd have to, you know, you know, hone in on them a little bit. So
you'd have to say, you'd almost have to say, I like the trade idea, but you'd almost have to say, a pit crew member can only be traded once during a season. So you would prevent teams from going, oh, well, you know, you're on this one this week, we'll trade you right back. So I could see that. All right, I'm on board with that, as long as if you incorporate the spending cap with that. I agree with you. That could work. Okay, please continue.
Cool. All right, let's continue on. Everyone's favorite topic, playoffs.
Oh boy.
I'm
taking notes for those watching. When I'm looking down, I'm taking notes here.
Fine. Let's play a fun game. What do you think my playoff format is?
I actually think you're going to say 10, the chase.
I got it down to 2 formats. It's either the 10 race chase or it's the 5 and 5. I can be sold on either one. I think it's a conversation worth having. You know, one of those 2 is where I'm at. And I do want to see a championship decided by a longer runway than just a race. I'm okay with that. I think 4 races is good if we even that, but like 5 is great. If you want to go back to the old 10, I'm okay with that. I went back and forth on this next thing, and I wasn't sure how to do this. I like the winning you're in. I like that winning a regular season race carries added bonus of getting in the playoffs. I think it rewards teams that win races, and it's having a successful year. And I think there should be something to be said for that. I understand that's not everyone's cup of tea. And so I am going to go with the top 10 in points automatically gets you in for sure. 100%. Top 10 in points, whether you win a race or not, you are in. Chris Buescher, you finished top 10 in points this year, you're getting in. Martin Truex a few years ago finished 6th in the regular season, didn't get in the playoffs. He would be in under this. I would be open to the conversation of, and then anybody beyond that 10, if you win a race, you get in. So some years that could be 14 number, some years that could be 16, it could be 17, it depends. I did ultimately decide, though, top 10 in points gets you in, and then you get 2 wild cards on the highest winners. If you win the top 2 winningest drivers not in earn wild card spots. And I would even have the conversation of, hey, if you win multiple races during a season, you automatically get in. So it's not a win in you're in, it's a wins in you're in. Does that make sense? And so that way, it, you know, you can, the argument is, well, somebody got lucky, or they, you know, caution, or, you know, rain or whatever, they're going to use that. Okay, fair, fine. But if you win twice, I think we can all agree, like that's noteworthy. And so that's where I'd be that. So I'm a little bit more open on the exact number and how you would define it, but I would have a playoff, and it would probably be either 10 races or the 5 and 5. Jeff?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on playoffs later, but just to respond to yours, I don't think if you do the chase, I understand what you're saying for the win and in, but I don't think that would work. So I agree with your top 10 in points. Because if you were going to do a chase and say, hey, this is 10 races straight up, you can't have the 30th place guy that won the Daytona race, and because you know he's just going to finish last, it's just going to take up a spot, and it's going to be a totally irrelevant storyline. You're just gonna be like, man, what are we even talking about here? You know what I mean? So what you're saying, ultimately, you landed on the 2012 point system.
Yep.
I think maybe was that top 10 in points plus 2 wild cards? Or was
top
it top
10 in
12?
points plus 2 wild cards. Basically, it's a throwback. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So
potentially multiple wild cards if you want to have that conversation.
And I do think there's something to top 10 plus all winners, maybe. But again, I just think it becomes so this sort of a random super speedway win or something like that. A rain shortened race, gets you in and it's just like, why are we even, but I just have a different philosophy on the playoffs. So, but in terms of your points, that's what I'd respond to. Okay, please continue.
Yeah, and one other thing too on the playoffs I should mention. I talked about a shorter season, right? Getting that down to about 30 races. So Jeff, I was wondering for you, do you think a 22 race regular season and then 8 playoff races would be the way to go, or would you do a 20 and 10 if you had a 30 race schedule? I think you have to do 22 and 8.
Yeah, if you're going to do that, I would say that's too playoff heavy.
Yeah.
If you're going to do your system.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
yes.
That's why the other thing I had is I'd probably end up on a 22 race regular season, 8 playoffs.
And just remind the people what the 5 and 5 is real quick.
Yeah.
In case they don't.
So basically it's my understanding would be it's kind of how it is now. 16 drivers.
Well, wait, your understanding. We didn't, this isn't we made this up or we go ahead.
No. So, I mean, the 5 and 5 is basically, well, you'd have to kind of have 16 drivers just kind of to make it kind of mathematically make sense, I guess, a little bit. But yeah, well, maybe. And so the 5 and 5 is the first 5 races of the playoffs are, if you win one of those races, you automatically advance to the next round. And then for the last 5 races, it's a straight run to the championship. And the bracket is filled out for those last 5 races, is if you win one of the 5 races in the first round, or you finish high enough in the point standings. Now, the question is, how many drivers do you take? Is it 6? Is it 8? What is that number? Probably 6 would be my goal. And so top 6 in points plus winners move on to those final 5 races. And then it's a straight, whoever's got the most points over those 5 races.
Yeah. I mean, at the start of the playoff committee, that was going to be my preferred format until I went to team 36. But it would basically be whatever the number is, either it's 16 or 12 drivers, run 5 races, cut in half, eliminate the bottom. And then you have the remaining, whether 8 or 6, run 5 races on points straight up. And that's your champion.
But and you still would get
a mini chase,
but you still get the win in advance thing, which is, that is a selling point. And TV will tell you that. TV, like they if you win a playoff race, you're going to go on to the next round, which is fine. But also, if you want consistency, if you running well every week, you're still going to move on as well.
The only problem is that if you win the playoff opener, then you have a 4 race bye.
Yeah.
That's
I mean, is there something to be said there for playoff points and things like that? And I don't, that's the only where it gets complicated. And these are all things I thought about as I settled on this. And it's like, the idea is to simplify the point system and simplify the playoffs and kind of, and I think everybody agrees it's a little too complicated right now. There's too, stage points, playoff points, regular season. Like, if the idea is to just simplify this and make it easy for a non-fan to come in and be like, what is this? How do you decide the championship? I think the 10 race chase is probably the most straightforward way to do that. And that's where I'm at.
Okay. I'm not quite there. But I like that.
That's fine. All right. Competition category. There is a push by drivers and people in this sport to add horsepower. All for it. Great. Do that. I don't know what that number is. I don't know what you should open it up to. NASCAR is adding horsepower next year on the short tracks and road courses. A lot of people are like, give me more. Okay. I don't know what that number is, but we're going to all sit down in a room, all the smart people at NASCAR, all the smart people on the team side and the OEMs, and we're going to sit down and figure out what that is. What's that number that's going to get us to where we want to be? I will say this. The only concern I have with the horsepower thing and changing things a little bit is the intermediate track racing has never been better. It is fantastic, and I don't want to lose that. And the short tracks, I think we can agree. You look at the last 3 short track races, Martinsville, Bristol, Richmond. Those were pretty good races, so like they have made significant strides on the short track package. More can be done, obviously, but they're getting there. And so I'm a little concerned about maybe hurting the product, but if you all think that horsepower is the way to go, then great. We're going to sit down and figure that out and give me high horsepower. I also want to continue to push Goodyear to give me high wear tires. Like it is, we have shown this repeatedly this year on a variety of tracks. Tire wear matters. It helps the product better. It puts it in drivers' hands. I want to see that. The other thing related to engines, in the charter agreement, it says any engine formulas, the teams need 2 years in advance and then the OEMs need 2 years in advance. Great. The clock starts today. In 2028, we are going to have a new engine formula. And I don't know what that's going to be, but we're all going to sit down and figure that out. NASCAR's got some ideas, and that is the idea of encouraging new manufacturers to come into the sport. And I want to see that. I want to see Dodge come in. I want to see Honda come in. I'm trying to get as many OEMs here as possible. I look at the IMSA model, especially in their GT classes, when they've got all these different cars, and they have all of these OEMs that are there to win, and it means a lot to them. And I talked about parity and stuff. Having new engine manufacturers come in is going to bring additional marketing and eyeballs to the sport. So get more people in there. It is a fact. When Toyota came into the sport, they spent a lot of money advertising it. Dodge did the same thing. When Dodge hopefully comes into the Cup Series in a few years, they're going to spend a lot of money promoting the sport. But what new manufacturers also do is inject mid-tier teams with additional resources and revenue streams. You look at when Dodge came into the sport in 2001, they aligned with Chip Ganassi Racing. Chip Ganassi Racing went from an underachieving team to a team that was consistently winning races, and they, some years, almost won the championship. You look at, they built with Ray Abraham's team. And so if you take a look at what a new OEM would do coming into the sport, they would effectively take like the third and fourth teams at the Chevy, Ford, and Toyota level right now and basically turn them into flagship programs. They would have an inject of resources and revenue streams. And if we're trying to create more parity and better racing and more competition, having OEMs in the sport is the way to do that. And that is why I'm going to sit down today and we are going to figure out this engine formula and institute it and start that 2-year clock to get this going. Because I don't want, NASCAR is hopeful to have this by the end of the decade. Great. But I'm going to guarantee you, since I'm in charge, I'm going to guarantee you that come 2028, Daytona 500, we're going to have a new engine formula. And coinciding with that, we're also going to have new OEMs in the sport. And it's going to be 4, 5, 6 OEMs in the sport. It's going to be a pit fight. These guys are going to be in it to win it. That's going to make the racing better, and it's going to make people more excited. And I want to get back to the days of, man, I'm a Ford guy. I'm a Chevy guy. I hate you because you're a Ford guy or you're a Chevy guy. I want to see if I can get back to that level. The other thing, I do want to eliminate stage breaks. I'll keep stage points. Fine. Eliminate stage breaks. It's unnecessary. Stage breaks they screw up strategy. Think about races at Pocono, Indianapolis, super speedways, those road courses. I will stand by it. Those races are better without stage breaks. And it might help curb what?
Isn't that I thought we argued about this. I was the one that wanted to get rid of those, and you said those are necessary, I thought.
I don't think so. I don't know. But I want to get done. I want to get rid of stage breaks. Like, it's just unnecessary. I don't like, and I thought about this too, I was talking to somebody and they equated it to the NFL. And the thing is like, think about like a caution comes out late in a stage, like 6 laps to go. But then they restart this, and then there's commercials and everything, right? And then they restart the stage and it's like a 2-lap dash to the stage break. Great, more commercials. And they were like, it's like an NFL game back in the day. Like somebody would score a touchdown, take a commercial break, come back, they'd have the kickoff, then a commercial break. No, man, like we're trying to keep people on the sport and engaged and excited. Don't give people a reason to change the channel. If you can get rid of stage breaks, hopefully maybe it curbs some of the issues you've seen at Talladega and Daytona where people are saving fuel or whatever, and it opens up that window. I am fine with that. I keep stage points, reward people for running well at various points races, whatever, don't care. But stage breaks have got to go. I just don't think it serves a purpose, and it's just no longer practical. I also, and I'm open to this, Jeff, and maybe your thoughts on this. I either want to see a longer practice session than the 25 minutes, or I want to see additional practice sessions. I'd like to see 2 practice sessions. I don't need to go back in the day where they had 350 minutes. That was too much. But get some cars on the track. I'll let them go in garage and make a few adjustments. I understand it's a cost thing. We're trying to keep costs down to some degree, but there's a way to do this to make the product better. Let these guys have some track time. And also, it's nice to see like how somebody does over, after going to the garage. And they sucked to begin with, but they went to the garage and they got better. Who's got longer run speed? Who's got short run speed? Let these guys figure this out. And it also gives an opportunity for the teams to try different things, to maybe they hit on something. And it also gives a talking points for the media, for the fans, build things up of like, man, so-and-so was really fast in practice, or so-and-so was really fast in practice, but he qualified terribly, or vice versa. Like, gives us something to talk about going to a race. Now it's like, boom, 25-minute practice, boom, qualifying, and then race. And it's just like, that's not enough. It needs to be more. So I want to see that. Also, more points for winning. We've talked about all the time. Winning matters. And I think my biggest concern about going to the season-long points formula or points championship is I want to see the emphasis on winning. One of the things that NASCAR has done, I think, a really good job of in recent years is putting an emphasis on winning. And winning matters, and what winning means in terms of the big picture. I think that is something that is imperative to keep. Give them a lot of points for winning. Also, give bonus points for leading the most laps. Whoever leads the most laps gets bonus points. I don't want to go back to the days of if you lead a lap, you get 5 points, because there's too much wiki with that. A teammate would let another teammate pass, and lead 5. Like, no, we're not doing that. But if you lead the most laps in a race, you did something. You get rewarded for that. Sorry, my phone is ringing, and that is somebody important. That's okay. Crap. So we are going to give bonus points for leading laps. Also, this is not a hot button topic, but there are some races that need to be reduced. Like, I understand that TV wants a 3-hour-ish, 3.5-hour window of things. I just don't think that's necessary at a lot of these races. You do not touch the crown jewels, the Brickyards, the Darlingtons, the Daytonas, that kind of thing. No, like, those are fine. But there are some races, like this could be a 300-mile race, like, for all intents and purposes. And that just, again, let's keep the excitement there. Less is more, and that's where I'm at. And it's just a little bit of a team thing, but this is a competition thing, and this is a pet peeve of mine. And I'm going to use this example. This isn't a criticism, but this is how it goes. Pocono this year, William Byron had his crash in practice, right? And his team's got to go to the garage, and they got to repair all these repairs. It wasn't just William Byron's team that was working on that car. It was literally all of Hendrick Motorsports, from the 9, the 24, the 48. No. If you have an issue with your car, you crash your car, you got to go to backup car, you got to make repairs. Nobody other than that team specifically, as in the number of that team, that number team, can work on the car. Like, I don't want to give the big organizations an advantage again. I'm trying to narrow this down a little bit. And it's a little bit unfair. Like, if you're a Hendrick Motorsports or Joe Gibbs or Team Penske and you crash, it's like, it's all hands on deck. Well, you've got more hands at the racetrack because you've got more cars. It's always been a little pet peeve of mine. And it's an unfair advantage.
Okay.
That is my competition stuff.
So just a couple points here.
Yep.
First of all, it seems like the Jordan redemption arc with people are going to like a lot of what you said, I think. But I'm a little bit more cautious on horsepower in the sense that we've been told we don't really know the impacts of it. So what I was going to say for mine is I do want to investigate even higher horsepower, but what I'd like to do is have like maybe a full year of extensive testing to understand how it wears out the tires on different tracks, to understand what the implications would be.
Sure.
Because even though I am Jeff France here and have the ultimate power to change whatever, I am reluctant to send the industry down a road that we don't. So much of the sport is the unforeseen consequences of decisions that might even seem correct at the time. And so that does worry me.
Sure.
I would want just to have a lot of testing there. I am completely with you. You took my thunder on eliminating the stage breaks, but keeping stage points. I am in favor of stage points. People say I don't like the stages, but I think the people that shouldn't the same argument for the 36 races and hey, we want consistency to matter. Shouldn't that be the same people wanting stage points? Because instead of getting to the end of a race and you completely, you get taken out on some restart after you've led the most laps and had a dominant day and you get 0 points, shouldn't you be rewarded for how you run at various stages of the race? I think you should be, but I agree with you that there's so many times where you lose fuel strategy, you lose tire strategy, you lose some element of strategy because when you know the caution's going to come out, these crew chiefs are brilliant in the war rooms and everybody's game planned all this stuff. And, and I get that, I stumped for no cautions at the road courses. And then you had a couple boring races and they didn't even finish out the year of doing that. But
that happens.
I think you have to let the races unfold naturally and just say, hey, I'd be more curious to see how it plays out. I think they only gave it 2 or 3 races or something that year before they said, all right, we're going back to stage breaks. So especially on, super speedways, all that stuff. I mean, I'd really like to get rid of the stage breaks. So additional practices, I'm with you on that. What I was going to say for mine, bring back 1 full practice every weekend, but I'd also be fine with multiple. But I agree that you don't need to add a whole extra day every time. Nope. And then the more points for winning, I think that's already in the works, and that will be very important regardless of the format. That listen, we could talk about good points days and second and third. Okay, you give somewhat similar points, but there should be a noticeable difference between first and second. That this sport is all about winning ultimately, and if you win races, and also like if there is a full season or even a 10 race chase, there's an argument that's like, well, if you do too many points for winning, you could have somebody really run away with it. I think the inverse is also possible to where, hey, somebody is not out of it. If they could get hot and win 3 of the last 4 races, they're still saying, hey, it's not looking good for me points wise.
Well, I got a shot.
If I go on a heater here, exactly.
Yeah, you want to say, and I will say that they will have earned it if they go on a Jimmy Johnson 2000 type run, where Jeff Gordon was running great every week, but Jimmy Johnson just went to the Jimmy Johnson Superman level, and you're going to go win races, then God bless you, man. You deserve it. If you're going to go win 4 or 5 races, you deserve it. That's what this is about.
Yeah, I remember what year was that where he wins maybe Texas and Phoenix and late in the year, it was 3 of the last 4 races or something like that.
Yeah, it was 2007.
4 of the last 5 maybe in the chase. And you were like, holy cow, he can't we thought he was done and he came out of nowhere and took this thing. So
I think it was, I'm looking now really quick. But it was just an incredible year. What do you think about the idea about teams working on cars? Let me start with this. What do you think about the engine changes in terms of finding a new engine formula to bring in new manufacturers?
Well, I think that we've given you power here to change the rules, but what we haven't give you is the magic genie power to make these OEMs want to spend the money to come in. So you may be right in that if you say, hey, I'm setting up a formula to do this. I think NASCAR is already kind of doing that, but you can't control whether these people will invest or not. So unfortunately, that's kind of out of your control, but you can make it attractive for them. But
some of this is a little bit in reporting too. And I know the things that are going on behind the scenes in terms of the engine formula. And I know, like you mentioned, that NASCAR is trying to do this. And it's okay, they are trying to do this. We're just going to push this. We're going to try to accelerate this timeline a little bit. And you've got a Dodge who's sitting out there, and you maybe have 1 or 2 other manufacturers are kind of on the fence or waiting to see what you hit on before you're let's trying to nudge this along a little bit. It was 2007, by the way. Jimmy Johnson had 4 straight wins in the playoffs.
Oh yeah.
And that was the year Gordon was running great too. He just was not doing Jimmy Johnson things.
I remember sitting in, I guess it would have been the second to last race at Phoenix. I remember sitting in the Phoenix Media Center, the old crappy dungeon with all the scorpions and huge spiders and stuff.
Oh, seriously?
And oh yeah. That was the old
Oh,
Phoenix Media Center was one of the worst of all time. But anyway, I remember him coming in. I guess it was after his fourth straight win. And everybody was just like, man, what the hell just happened? Like, this was crazy, you know?
yeah.
Anyway, all right. Your last, you said you had one last category?
Yeah, I got one last.
Or no, you have two more. Oh, you have one more, right?
Yeah,
Business, you said?
I got business now. We got competition
Okay.
out of the way.
Right.
And business side. This is a pet peeve of mine. We're not going to issue fines for fighting anymore. Like, not doing it for drivers, crew guys, stuff like that. I get it. Wrote about this year on The Athletic about how NASCAR handles post-race fights. They do not want crew guys getting involved for a lot of reasons. I'm great with that. We do not want that. Well, let me take that back. Like, it's okay to every once in a while have a brawl. Like, it's not bad for business, right? But largely, it's not practical. It makes sense. Guys can get hurt. But if Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is going to pop Kyle Busch, I'm not fining him $75,000. Hell, I'm probably going to pay him $75,000 for that and go, here's your check. Thank you for that. You just got us on every national outlet in the country. And we're not going to embarrass you by finding you 75 grand, which, by the way, pisses off your sponsor, because your sponsor's like, oh man, like that makes us look bad. Like, no, we're going to celebrate it. We're going to make you look like a badass. And your sponsor's going to be like, yeah, that's my guy. Like, you know, and it really bothers me. It's so hypocritical to sit there and find these guys this money, and at the same time you turn around and use it for a commercial. You can't have it both ways. And I understand you wrote a really good thing on a column last year about this, and there's all these different facets within NASCAR. There's the competition and the marketing and the business and all of this, right? But you still cannot sit there and say, man, that was wrong. We're going to penalize you for that. But at the same time, we're going to use this over here to hype this race and this and that. Like, you can't have it both ways. If two drivers are fighting and the guy gets popped, cool. If, you know, I'm fine with that. I don't want, like, there's a line, obviously, but that's not the line. And it sure as hell wasn't worth $75,000. And we just need to remodify that a little bit. And you can't sit there, you know, and it drives me crazy that the crash from 10 years ago at Martinsville with Matt Kenseth and Joey Logano that earned Matt Kenseth the 2-race suspension, justifiably so, by the way. Like, they use that to tout that race. Like, you that act was so egregious, and it earned him a suspension. But at the same time, man, come watch. Like, it's just, you can't have it both ways. So I am doing away with fines for fighting. I'm actually maybe encouraging drivers to fight, and I'll be handing out sponsor bonuses as a thing. I'm going to figure out a way at the track level to do more sponsor activation. This is not an expertise of mine. It's not an area I feel confident speaking in, but like just having conversations with a lot of fans and everything, I hear about how the fan zones back in the day, there was a lot going on, and some tracks still do a good job. But I also hear a lot of tracks, like, it feels sparse, it feels empty. And I'm going to try to figure out a way to make that matter again. Have cool events, make people excited, get people out to the racetrack before and get them to stick around. I don't know how I'm going to do that, but I'm going to sit down. I'm going to get with my sponsors. Maybe that's lowering the cost of having a company come in and try to do things. I don't know, but we are going to make sure that our fan zone is hopping and exciting. And we're going to try to bring back that vibe that used to be, where it's like a magical place and people were excited to be there. And it was like, everywhere you look, there was something fun going on. So that is that. These kind of tie into I want drivers to be themselves. I want them to express their opinions, and I want them to dress how they want to dress. You know, it's a ticky-tack thing, but like, one of the things about F1 that people get excited about is, what is Lewis Hamilton going to wear to the racetrack? You know, or what is he wearing into the racetrack this week? How is it different? And if a guy wants to wear something different to a racetrack, he should be allowed to. He doesn't have to wear a polo shirt or a t-shirt with his sponsor's logo on him. Like, just get his name out there and let them be themselves. You know, if a guy wants to grow a bushy beard, so be it, man. Be you. You know what I mean? Like, I want to encourage identity, being your own identity, your own person. And if that's not you, then that's fine. Or you don't have to be something you're not. But there are drivers out there who are stifled because of different sponsor things or team things. I don't want to see that. If we're trying to create stars and create massive personalities to push the sport forward, then we need to make them personalities, and we need to allow them be themselves. And sometimes, yeah, they're going to step over the line, and that's okay. We're going to correct that when it happens. But I want drivers to be themselves. I also want to see more grassroots activation. NASCAR's made it a really big focus the last few years of trying to be more connected to the grassroots. Great. We're going to continue that. We're going to continue to push that. I'm also going to work on trying to set up my schedule where maybe we can have different events. We're going to have a big Cup Series race in town at the same time as maybe a big grassroots level races going on. And I'm going to use the Knoxville Nationals as an example. I think this is a huge missed opportunity. In 2026, Iowa's Cup Series race is on August 9th. The Knoxville Nationals is the following weekend. Why not have that? Like, have this really cool kick-ass event in Iowa, man. Like, go check out the Knoxville Nationals, and then on Sunday, go watch the Cup Series race at Iowa Speedway. You know, why not piggyback on that? Why not make it easy on Kyle Larson and other drivers who want to go run the Knoxville Nationals to go do that? And then the next day be, you know, they don't have to hop on a helicopter and fly across the country. They can just, they're right there. How badass would it be to, like, Kyle Larson, 30 miles or wherever it is from Iowa Speedway is running the Knoxville Nationals and wins. And the next day he's walking in with the trophy. Maybe you get some of those fans at the Knoxville Nationals. Sell tickets, man. And Iowa's done a really good job of selling tickets, but you can always sell more, right? Like, we're going to try to push that. We're going to try to keep that connectivity there. And you can do different events like that throughout the country. High Limit Racing has done a really good job this year, or the last few years, I think, of setting up their schedule where they have dirt races at Las Vegas and Texas, right, Jeff? Like, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a celebration of, like, you get the NASCAR people over there seeing that. I want more of that throughout the country because I think that it high tide raises all ships, and that you can do a better job of connecting with those people at the grassroots level. You might turn them back into NASCAR fans if they haven't been, or you may bring them back. This is a pie in the sky, and I go back and forth on this one. I've had a lot of conversations recently with people about this, and I got into a kind of an argument with somebody on the team side about this as I was putting together my list. I am of the belief that I think it's important to have the same primary sponsor, same color pattern on your race car most weeks. You go back to races 30 years ago and you turned down a race, you knew what your color, your favorite, you knew what your favorite driver's car looked like. Nowadays, it changes literally every week. Like, you don't know. It can be the same sponsor, it can be a different scheme. And honestly, in some cases, drivers in the same organization share the same primary sponsor, and it flips. So, like, one week he's got this, another week my teammates got this. It's really hard to follow. And the argument I heard from some people was, well, it really doesn't matter anymore. And you can go online and see what their favorite driver sponsor is. And I get all that, but there is something to be said for watching a race and going, who is that? Like, what number is that? Like, I even struggle with this. Like, and you look at Formula One, they do a really good job of, like, what a Ferrari looks like, what a Mercedes looks like, what a McLaren looks like. You largely know what some of these cars look like, right? Like, they're identifiable. I think that goes a long way. We talk about building superstars and everything. Well, part of it was, like, back in the days, like, you knew Earnhardt was in that 3 car. He was in a black 3 car. You knew Jeff Gordon was in a rainbow car. I want to make it easy for people to tune in and, like, know who is running what car, and they don't have to second guess. And so I think it is. And the argument I heard from somebody when I'm talking about this is, well, baseball and NBA, they have all sorts of different jerseys, and they rotate all the time. That's great. There's 2 teams playing. Like, it's really easy to figure out who's who. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. When there's 40 guys on the racetrack, that's really a challenge. And I know that's easier said than done because of the economics of the sport. But maybe if we can fix the business model a little bit, maybe we can make it more affordable for some of these sponsors to be on that car for 20 plus races where it's a little bit more identifiable. The last thing on my list, I'm okay with streaming and cable. NASCAR's deal with Amazon was great, and there's a lot of growth potential there. There's a lot of excitement about that. You need that going forward. You need to have that Amazon. You need to have that streaming component. They did a great job. You're going to have races on cable. That's inevitable. Every sport has races on cable, just for the most part. I'm okay with that. But you also need to figure out a way to get most of your races on network TV. In a sponsor-driven sport where it is imperative that they get attention on, they get an ROI, you have to be on network. And the TV ratings for network races versus cable races is jarring. And the idea is to grow this sport and to get it out there and to help elevate it, then we need to be on network. Plain and simple, more often than not. And maybe you have to take less money on the front end some of your TV deals, but maybe you can figure out a way to maybe make it on the back end if you hit certain parameters or something like that. I don't know what that is. I want to maintain races on cable. I want to maintain races on streaming, but I do want the bulk of my schedule to be accessible and on network TV.
Well, we've overlapped a lot on that one, Jordan. So at least mine won't be as long when I get to mine. But
sorry, long-winded.
No. I love the preparation that you came with here today. I'm just saying, I think we agree on a lot of these that I had on my list. So one is that, we've both heard multiple drivers talk about, well, I'd love to go, punch that guy in the face, but it's not worth $75,000 to me. The $75,000 Stenhouse fine, the amount of money that was very jarring and got everybody's attention in the garage. If that had even been $5,000 or $10,000, I think it's a different story. But these guys are like, I'm not paying $75,000 for that.
Yeah,
absolutely not. It's not worth it. Like, I'm mad and I hate that guy, but and so that was a big overstep. I think that was too far. And I get that was partly because he waited so long and it was premeditated and there was other people involved. But
don't care.
Yeah,
I want more of that.
I think I have no fines for drivers fighting. And I do think that you heavily penalize or suspend anybody else that jumps in, whether it's a family member or a crew member or whatever. Let NASCAR security break it up. That's what they're there for. You did a great story on them. But we don't need the crew members fighting, these big guys, lobbing huge shots at each other. But dang it. That was completely.
You're doing so good.
I made it an hour into this. Anyway, it's unbelievable. Unbelievable how this happens. I only hear it after it's already out into the ether. Anyway, I totally agree with you on that. And I think that's hurt and that we need more drivers. Does it hurt hockey that people fight in hockey? No, it doesn't hurt hockey. People are so worried. Oh my God, they're going to think we're a bunch of rednecks if we go and fight on pit road. Like they're going to think no, they're not. Like it's just, they're going to think, oh, what are these guys mad about? That's crazy. Maybe I should tune in or catch up on this. So it'll be the water cooler talk. Drivers not being themselves. I have a section on that. I don't think it's necessarily the wardrobe part. I'm sure you're getting that from drivers who love the drivers who like how you dress or your fashion sense are telling you, I wish I could dress like that, but I can't. I bet that's what it is. And I think there's other ways to make the drivers be themselves too. I guess I'll just go into it now for my part of it. I think what has been a huge detriment for NASCAR has been drivers feeling beaten down like the Ross Chastains of the world when they step out of line, and everybody piles on and suddenly their personality is muted. I think we've seen it with Tyler Reddick to a degree. And part of it's just the pressure of driving for a big team and having to pay people's bills and, being responsible for such a big organization and, not angering your sponsors. But there's been times where the NASCAR fan base piles on. Everybody says they want personalities, and you get personalities, and people say, well, not like that. And they pile on. I'm not saying, to make racist comments or something like that as a personality trait. I'm talking about like the Carson Hosevars of the world or the Jesse Loves of the world, who are going to have a little bit different things to say and are maybe not totally polished in how they say it. We've got to make sure that we are not piling on those people and making and disincentivizing them to be different and show that personality, because we've lost a lot of personality because people are just like, all right, you know what? It's not worth it. It's just not worth it to be on social media, to be outspoken in interviews, to show my true self and share my thoughts. I'm just going to bite my tongue. I'm not going to say anything. Sorry, not worth it. And that's very detrimental. That is actions detrimental, to the sport, is to lose these. So I totally agree with you on that element of it. I don't agree with you on. I do agree with you as well on the, getting network races. Look, it's a tough calculus, right? Because the whole reason NASCAR is still in such financial good shape, and the teams are as well for the most part, despite the downturn, is because they've been able to sell these TV packages to the highest bidder, and that's propped up the sport. But this is a fan base that look at how well the CW did, because it's on network TV and people could find it. This is a fan base that is not as tech savvy as other fan bases, and so it probably would help to be on network more, but it's such a tough balance. I really sympathize with NASCAR on that one, because you've got to diversify where you're showing your races, but it sure would be nice to be on network more. I do agree. But yeah, I was going to disagree on the primary sponsor part of it. I agree with what you're trying to say, in that we have lost in NASCAR, have lost the iconic cars, because right now you could say, well, Kyle Larson and the Hendrick cars paint scheme, like 10, 15 years from now, you'll be like, man, that was a fearsome car when that was around, like that car. What are some of the other cars? Because it changes so often.
That's what I'm saying.
Right. I agree with you, but I don't think saying, hey, you gotta be all red. And so, or mostly this, I think the solution there, Jordan, is to give the team so much more money.
Agree. And that's
that
what I'm saying.
You don't have to ask. You could go to
100%
Progressive
agree.
or whatever and say, okay, for Denny Hamlin, now we'll let you sponsor 20 races for the price of 5 before, because we're getting so much money. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. No, I hold that. Then that's that I mentioned. It's like this is how you change it: is you change the business model and you make it more affordable and economical. Where maybe teams, sponsors now can come in and instead of they're paying X amount now, well, that's going to get you more. And then also what that does too is you don't need like 3 and 4 and 5 primary sponsors, and maybe those primary sponsors then are like, hey, I'm going to go somewhere else and be the main over here. And so again, we're kind of spreading this out a little bit. And I think there's a way to do it. That's how you do it. And that's where it's like, you mentioned Larson, like Logano and Shell. Shell's on that car most of the year, and it's like identifiable. But a lot of these other Allies, the only other one really right now, top of my head. I mean, it's just you don't have that. And if you can make a business model where you sponsors are getting bang for their buck and are on the car for 25 plus races, man, like that would be something.
I agree, and it's a really somebody, one of the YouTubers out there should do a video on this at some point of like, what are going to be the iconic paint schemes from this era? Because now you've lost Kyle Busch M&Ms, you've lost Denny Hamlin FedEx, right? Like when there's a show car on display at some racetrack, 20 years from now from this era, there's not really going to be that many.
I mean, it's
like, oh, that paint scheme, yeah, that one.
Bass Pro Shops, maybe with the 19, because they're on that car, they're on full time, but it's not very many.
Yeah.
Napa.
All right, maybe. Well, Jordan, despite your reputation with the fan base, I think there's you hit a lot of good points here. This might be your popularity might have, I don't know, say gone up from one episode, but.
I mean, it can't go up. Any lower. It's okay.
It can't go down. It can't go anywhere.
He's being hated. Everybody wants to hate me. It's all good. It's the life I lead.
Well, I think those were a lot of good suggestions, what I'm trying to say. So here's, again, and a lot of mine have already been talked about here, but I'll hit on some of my points. So first of all, as I've been named NASCAR chairman and CEO here, and czar. Unfortunately, I think a lot of people have quit that worked for NASCAR because this is their nightmare. So I'm going to have to hire a lot of new people, I guess. But overall, so
Indeed.com, Jeff. Indeed.com.
Yeah. So listen, my overall philosophy here, as somewhat of a purist, but still with an eye on a modernization. I get all that. I'm going to take a break from trying to chase new fans and do things that I think will please new fans. Because I think when NASCAR was at its sweet spot, or what started it in the 90s, what really helped launch the growth was you had people seeing these massive crowds and these fanatics about NASCAR, and you see this on TV, like, what is this all about? Like, what is this sort of mysterious Southern sport that people are so passionate and crazy about? And it caused outsiders and corporations to go, whoa, like, what is it about this? Like, should we be involved in this? Should we check this out? And you got a big TV deal out of it. And you got Fortune 500 companies flocking into it. So unfortunately, you've lost a lot of the fan base since then, but there is a core remaining fan base who is still there. They are unhappy though, largely. So I'm going to get my remaining fan base as energized as possible. And it's going to be a long-term project, but what I'm going to do is just get them, try to make them happy again. And maybe that's chasing my own tail and it's impossible, but that's what I think is all that's sort of left to try to save this from going the wrong direction indefinitely. I want to get my remaining fans excited about NASCAR again and loving NASCAR and feeling good about it. And not feeling so worn out and exhausted by things they don't like. And listen, we can say that the NASCAR fan base is too negative, but they also have had a reason to be negative for a lot of these rule changes and developments and policies over the last, not just this year, I'm saying, but like over the last couple decades, right? Like the direction of the sport, they have a nostalgia for how things used to be because a lot of it was very different. It was a very different sport. So you can't change everything. You can't go back, but I think there are certain things you could do to get things back in the right direction. Now, obviously, I'm going to stump here for 36 races as my number one thing. I do have some hesitation in that I don't know how it would turn out. And man, you talk to a ton of people within the industry who really, at their core, believe there's got to be some kind of playoff in some form. And so that gives me pause, and that I'm worried that me making this decision as Jeff France, essentially, that I'm going to lose a lot of my core support that I need. And so then I tend to go, well, maybe I should pursue a compromise of the 10 race chase and all that. But I was around for the entire 10 race chase, 2004 till it went away. And it's not like things were going so great there either. Part of that was Jimmy Johnson winning 5 in a row, but that I don't know that people really loved that. And that wasn't really increasing the attention or anything either. I think that if you could market 36 the right way and everybody could give it a couple seasons to breathe and see how it turned out, and you could have a truly organic championship battle and hope that it lasted at least until the final 3-4 weeks of the year, until it maybe somebody it looked like was going to only had to finish 30th at Homestead or whatever. Maybe that could happen, or maybe it could be close. And if it was close and you had some swings with this car and not being able to build yourself into a championship, this is a lot closer. This field, you took these final 8 drivers and let it play out over the course of the year. I really have a hard time feeling that somebody would truly run away with it. I get that they would try to be more consistent, but with the variety of tracks in NASCAR, it's hard. So I would love to see how that played out. And I would love to see the impact of whether from race number 1, you felt like, boom, game on. The playoffs, that intensity has begun now. I would be very curious to see the impact of that. So I am going to go for 36. What do you want to say about that?
Well, I hear what you're saying. Okay. It would be great to do a trial run, like you say. Like, let's try this out for a few years and see what this goes, and if this is the magic bullet per se. But I will continue to push back against your, with how you build the cars and this and that. Like, the reality is that more often than not, this is going to come down to a championship between 2 or 3 organizations. And I haven't verified this, but I saw a thing out there. It's like, if you look at the old formula, the old all season long, Hendrick Motorsports would have won like the last 5 championships. Is that a good thing? Is that a good thing that Hendrick Motorsports is going to win mostly championships? And the years they don't, it's going to be a Joe Gibbs team. Like, I don't know. And I want to have more teams in the mix. I want to have more organizations feel like they can do this. And I think having a playoff format allows you to do that to some degree. And I do worry about you. Like, the reality is more often than not, under the previous thing, like, there was a lot of runaways and the championship was well decided. And there is more competition now than ever before. People talk about, well, back in the day, people still watched. Okay. There is more competition now than ever before in sports. The NFL is significantly larger in terms of the number of people that watch it than ever before. College football, more popularity. There's the WNBA. There's golf. There are all sorts of sports now that have come in that are now competing for attention and eyeballs. And so I get concerned that it's going to be, you need to incentivize people to watch. And so I worry about that. And I don't think this is a good way to engage people. I understand there's merit to it, but to me, in the big picture, I just feel like there is a better way that can incorporate some of the elements of what the playoff can be and should be, along with the merits of the season-long championship. And I think that's how you end up on the 10-race chase.
I just don't think the 10-race chase goes far enough. You've lost the thread of being able to go week to week. These guys don't even know who they're racing against now. That is such a huge. Imagine if instead of Larson and Denny Hamlin by the first month of the season going, we're both in the playoffs, we'll see each other down the road. Yeah, we might have a few races on late race restarts where we're going for it and we're trying to get those wins or playoff points. But imagine those guys racing against each other for the championship all year long and having another driver or two in the mix where those rivalries are really being formed. And you're tuning in every week to go, oh boy, these guys, this is getting heated. Like, what's going to happen now? We have no consistent thread that winds between the season and holds it all together, that you go, okay, now, all right, you tune in for the race and you go, now remember, this happened. If you missed last week, this happened and this happened. Now what's going to happen this race, right? Because you've had these weird, okay, SVG won this road course race. He's in the playoffs. Now here we are at Atlanta and Daniel Suarez wins, or, it's just like, you don't even, it's so hard to explain what's happening. If you really were following the championship all year, like F1 has been doing, right? Like, there's a lot to that. And to your point about, well, you're going to have 1 or 2 teams dominate. I don't think there's any way of getting around that, no matter what the format. And if your solution is to, well, let's make it so that 23XI could come out of nowhere in the last couple races and win, that's going to feel like a fraudulent title if they weren't there all year. And that's what people are trying to get away from in the first place. So I think in F1, their growth has exploded as they've had 1 or 2 teams basically max be in the championship running. And I don't think that's hurt them. If it's a battle between teammates, then the storyline will be, okay, what can JGR do to catch up to Hendrick? What can Penske do rather than, man, I have no idea. We'll see what happens when we get down to the final 2 weeks of the season. We can't even forecast a championship because it's so unpredictable. It's so hard to build a cohesive narrative about the season. And I think 10 races is a lot better than what we have now. And you would get a more worthy champion. But in terms of the regular season, I think that 36 races would do so much if given a chance to breathe over time, to really help this sport, in my opinion. So
yeah, I will disagree. Like I said, I talk to people and they point to the numbers, and there is a real concern of what could happen come the fall. if there is a runaway champion and you're going against the NFL?
I think I'll reject that one as well, because I think the viewership numbers have taken a huge hit. You can't go much lower. Your core fan base, the fan bases that's left pretty much are your real core fans who are going to watch no matter the format. I hate to say that, but like think about how many of the 36 race people don't like this and are still watching because they love NASCAR, right? And so let's try to take the remaining existing fan base and give them what they're looking for.
But
So
you look at the numbers, and like, I mean, the problem with this is it's so split. And we have done unofficial polls here and there, and you and I've talked to the same people in groups and stuff. Like, it's 50-50, like, and so how do you the struggle is how do you change a sport where the fan base is like divided, and like how do you give everybody something of what they want, because you're gonna anger a good number of people. So to me, it's like,
here's the thing. Because I'm the czar of NASCAR, I'm going to say I'm doing what I think is best. Trust me. Hope you'll like it. Right. That's what the old attitude was. I'm doing what I think's best for the sport. Hope you'll come along for the ride. Hope you give it a chance. I think it's going to work. If it doesn't work, then you are Brian France with egg on your face and living with all these decisions that took the sport down the wrong road. If it does work, you're a genius, savior of the sport, right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying I'm in charge. Trust me, I think this is going to work. If we get to 5 years from now and it made things worse, then I'm going to go, I screwed up, but this is the power that I have in this fantasy world. So
no, so be it.
So a big thing that we've talked about the stages, stuff like that, and we've talked about bringing back a practice. I'm also going to keep increasing the number of tests so that Goodyear can keep developing the tires. I love the direction Goodyear's been going. And by the way, because this is a fantasy world and I could just do what I want, I am going to keep the next gen car concept, but I'm going to start developing a next gen 2.0 that will only be for short tracks and road courses. Because I do not want to mess with the intermediate track product. And I'm going to take the rest of this decade to test this new car before it rolls out, because we have to get this right. And the people within NASCAR, I think there was because the pandemic and everything closed down, they had to get this launched, and it was already a year delayed. And they're just, I wish there had been more time for everybody to feel like there was a longer runway. And maybe, it's so hard to find things in testing as well. That is a huge problem. I mean, even when they had the 550 package and stuff like that, I went to that Las Vegas test where they had the simulated races and it looked spectacular. And then by the time we got back for actual races, it wasn't so good. But, it's very tough to test this in real world circumstances, but I'd like to get as much testing as possible with whatever is next. Although I do think that the tires help, but it's really, the problem is the tracks that are not the multi-groove tracks. We've learned with this car, when you have options, when there's places where this car can get air, it performs really well. And the tracks where you can't, it's a problem. I just want a car that will do better at those type of places. But anyway, I got sidetracked because some of my bigger items, and this is a big one. A conversation that has come out since last week, or has heated up since last week, is overtime. And I think Gluck, in summarizing the replies, was wrong about one thing. I don't think that most fans want to see races end under caution. I think fans do want green flag finishes if possible. But the way that overtime currently is structured and also mixes up the field is essentially a microcosm of the championship conversation, where you end up with people viewed in some of these races as undeserving or out of nowhere winners. Because let's say you're about to finish the race, any race. Somebody's been dominating. They have a 3-second lead. Cody Ware spins. Caution. 3 laps to go. Now you have to decide, okay, are you coming for tires? Everybody does the opposite of the leader. The field gets mixed up. There's a restart. There's a crash, another restart. The whole day is flipped on its head, and you get somebody who was out of nowhere, wins the race. And while that's, quote, exciting, I don't think that is what's best for NASCAR. And I don't think that's what the purpose of overtime and extending the scheduled distance of the race was originally set to do. You want to give NASCAR came up with overtime because you want to give the fans a chance to see the battle play out. So there's been some theories, Jordan, that I want to run through that I am interested in hearing people's thoughts and hearing an industry conversation on what is the best for this. First of all, you have the Toby Christie proposal that he's made several times on X. And this is basically a proposal that you'd come up with some sort of gap to the leader. So like, let's say that if the leader's lead was over 2 seconds and a caution came out, the race ends under caution. There is no overtime because this person was going to win the race anyway, and some late random caution shouldn't change the outcome of that. That's not my favorite, but that's a theory that's out there.
No.
Another one, and this is race fan Robert Schlomer sent me some very detailed and interesting thoughts via DM in this last week, and we had it back and forth. And I want to give him credit because I think this could be a great idea. And I'll be interested to hear your take, Jordan. Overtime comes out. The race going into overtime, caution comes out. Pit road is closed. So overtime just continues of where the current running order is. You can't come in for tires. You don't have the option to do that. Now, this could be a tricky thing in that sometimes teams are close on fuel.
Mm-hmm.
So I went back and forth with another person in my DMs, Cincy Buckeye, because his thought was the leader should never be disadvantaged for overtime. And he is thinking the solution to that could be non-competitive pit stops to take fuel. But basically, both these people want the running order when overtime comes out to be the same. So, and I really, that's a very attractive thought to me. So that, listen, this person has earned their position. Some caution comes out at the end. It's not their own doing. Why should the entire running order of the race and people throwing Hail Marys change the outcome? All we want to do is see a chance to see the race finished out. So there's still a restart. They still have to defend on a restart, but it's not with people staying out. It's not with people taking 2 tires versus 4, all that stuff. And it's not with people running out of fuel. So what are your thoughts on that, Jordan, of how overtime could be fixed?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is as pressing an issue as people have talked about. Like it isn't like a widespread problem. It's certainly in the news because of how Phoenix unfolded. And I understand that. But this isn't, to me, feel like this isn't nearly an every week thing where like, oh man, this guy got screwed because of late race, overtime thing. I'm going through the running. I'm trying to go through here the list as you're talking of races this year. And there's a few, don't get me wrong. I mean, Texas, I think, was one of them. Obviously, Phoenix. But in the
Kansas Fall guy goes from 8th. Chase Elliott goes from 8th to first, right? So.
But the guys in front of him screwed up. Like, I mean, Denny Hamlin made him, overdrove a corner and got in there. And like, that's, and I just don't think that in the grand scheme of things that this is an issue. It's big an issue. And you talk about fuel and how do you calculate that? I don't want to see non-competitive pit stops. I don't want to change the fundamental order of how we do things. Like, oh, now we do a non-competitive pit stop, like, oh, but we don't do it before. No, like pit crews are important. If you're on pit road, it counts. Then there's the fuel calculation. There's also tire wear, and crew chiefs will pad for a couple laps into overtime. But it's just, how many here, you go back a few years ago to the Nashville finish, where that was completely chaotic. And it's like, oh, so now guys can't pit for fuel, even though they're like up against it. Like, what are we doing? Because then you're going to have guys run on the racetrack, and then you're going to pile up some more cautions. Like, it's a breeding ground for more issues. That's a very slippery slope. And I think you're going to be creating more problems there. I don't want to see a thing of, well, mathematically, this guy's 2 seconds ahead, so he's going to win the race. Like, no, like, you've got to run the race. How many times have we seen leaders have an issue, mechanical failure, tire failure, run out of gas, whatever? You just never know. Somebody gets into them. Like, if you're 2 seconds ahead, great. But that doesn't ensure anything. There shouldn't be anything guaranteed about that. And so I don't know. I just do not have a serious issue with overtime and how it's done. And, it's unfortunate. And yes, the leader can be put at a disadvantage. We have seen races like that, and it sucks. It's part of it, man. It's part of the sport. It's always been a fabric of the sport of like, sometimes it sucks to be the leader because you've got to make that decision whether you're going to go 4 tires or 2 tires. And that happens at various points. And I just don't feel like, I feel like there are so many other pressing issues that I'm going to focus on. This is not one of them.
Again, I'm trying to make my existing fan base happy. And I think that there's a traditionalist core that wants to, go ahead.
And I get that. And that's a great pie in the sky, sunshine and rainbows outlook. And I want my fan base to be happy and excited. But you're still like, do you truly believe, though, that you're going to be able to like make your fan base, the vast majority of your fan base happy? Is changing, is changing overtime going to do that? I don't think. I think you have to focus on other areas, and you have a better shot at doing that. To me, I just don't see the outrage when it comes to overtime that this is going to be something that's going to help, change the mindset on things.
I actually do think that this fan base could be happy again. Maybe I'm too optimistic.
You're way too optimistic. You're way too optimistic. There's just an inherent thing, and I get it. Why? I mean, I get it. Like you hit on it. Like there's so many changes, and people feel like they're disenfranchised and they've been pushed away, and this and that, and I get that. And you hear all about the talk of trying to get new fans, and it comes at the expense of older fans. It's a tough thing, and I get that. And I think some of the things we're talking about, though, like having more practice, trying to make the racing better on short tracks and road courses, and rewarding wins, like I think that would go a long, long way to kind of help bridging that a little bit, as much as you can. To me, overtime is not one of those things.
I think that the fan base can be happy again. And I'm not saying everybody will be happy. No, you'll never make everybody happy, of course. I'm not that naive. But what I'm saying is the majority of fans could be energized again because my evidence is they're still here. And they're negative, but they are negative because they want to like this again. They're not negative because they want to tune in every week and get angry and hate everything. They're negative because they have hope that it can get back to what they remember being happy and watching it and liking about it. Right. And again, maybe that's naive. Maybe that's a lot of nostalgia, but I think there's a way to try to go down that road. And part of that also is by the current leadership probably throwing Brian France under the bus.
It's all right.
He does. I think this sport, I think Brian France did the most harm to the sport of any one individual, honestly. And
there's the case.
I think that the current leadership, because a lot of those people were in various positions in the Brian France era, were working for NASCAR, get lumped in with him, but I don't think they're the same. I think all you have to do is, I listened to Steve O'Donnell on Dale Jr. Download saying, hey, like we screwed up by taking races like Darlington and moving them to, I think 100%. People want to hear that. Like, and if you could say, look, we've messed a lot of stuff up. Those of you who are still here, we appreciate you. We're not really speaking to a fan that's outside of our bubble right now, because the only people even paying attention to people are inside this bubble. Look at Look at Phoenix. You had no mainstream attention for this championship race, despite the amazing storylines. Nobody was talking about it nationally. You know what I'm saying? So this sport is very insular right now. Insular.
Very.
Is it insular?
Yeah.
And it is a little community. So talk to those people and say, and like I said, I like what he was saying. And it sounds like this campaign they're trying to do next year is sort of getting back to
the roots.
Hey, we're being us, right? Like that's what they're trying to do. And so I think if they do that and lean into that, then and do it the right way, I think there's a lot of merit to that. And I think people will be like, okay. And like with the changes that sound like they're coming, like I think people will give it a chance. I'd like to think they will. And if the sport can successfully have a reset in a way next year, and again, it's not going to change out overnight, change everything, but I'm an optimist about the state of things. So, yeah, anyway, in terms of, it's just, again, we've talked about most of this already in your proposal as well. Yeah, I guess just one more thing, like schedule wise, you talked about reducing the schedule, and reducing markets to run one race. I largely agree with that. I just would also like to add that let's get into some new markets as well. Let's get into some 100%. Of the underserved markets, Pacific Northwest, Canada, Denver. There are actually a lot of places with a lot of race fans who are starving for things. Probably one of my biggest memories of the year were the two girls in Mexico who finished their work, got on a bus, took a bus 13 hours because they couldn't afford to fly to the Mexico City race, made homemade custom Denny Hamlin shirts. And it was just like they were on fumes, of taking this bus ride, but it was the greatest thing ever. They were so excited. They were so enthusiastic. It was the first race they'd ever been to. They couldn't afford to go to the US for races. And to think about how many people are like that, even in our country, right? Like fans in the Pacific Northwest or in Denver who they can't make a whole trip out of it. They can't spend thousands of dollars, right? Like, but they could go if it was close enough to them. And there are areas of the country where they can't get to it necessarily. So that would be great. And obviously, I think it's too easy. It would, let's do a street course. I don't think that's it either. You got to try to find some, again, this is pie in the sky, but some ovals or
there's ovals in Mexico.
Well, but I'm just saying, even in this country, I mean, it's like maybe it's not ideal, the short tracks, but hey, maybe you gotta invest in it or buy some equity in it or something to
find a run. I agree with you, and I mentioned San Diego. Like San Diego is my tent pole. Like we're gonna shift that race every year. 1 year it's gonna be in San Diego, or 1 or 2 years it's gonna be in San Diego. A couple of years it's gonna be in Mexico. We're gonna continually move that around. To your point, we're gonna go to new markets. We're gonna shift that around, and like. Find runways, find an airport, an abandoned airport in some of these major cities, man, and build me a short track there. Yeah, it's going to be flat and it's not going to have the banking or whatever that you'd like to see. Don't care. Like, this just gives you some semblance of an oval that is more what NASCAR is than a street or road course. And it's fine. Like, you can go race in downtown Chicago and you can go race on a Navy base in San Diego. Awesome. All for that. But sometimes it's okay to have something new and different. And if that means I've got to build a temporary oval somewhere, they showed in the Coliseum, man. These are some smart people doing these things. They can find a way to do this. Like, like you go back in the day of the IndyCar series. Like my favorite race back in the day of the IndyCar used to be the Cleveland Airport race. Like these 5 wide down the straightaways and like these sweeping corners. Like, do something like that, but make it an oval, man. Like you can do a lot of cool different things.
All right. Well, those are our suggestions. We're gonna try to build some stars. We're going to change the playoffs. We're going to keep working on the competition. But all things that I think NASCAR is already trying to do themselves, but maybe we just get there in a different way.
Forward this episode to Jim France. We should invite Jim. We should invited Jim to be part of this podcast. Like this was a great episode for him to come on and talk about it. Like, hey Jim, here's some ideas. Why don't you we're going to bounce these off of you? What do you think, bud?
Yeah, I'm sure that'd be terrific. Okay. Well, congratulations to us. We fixed NASCAR again. And so, anyway, Hopefully you guys made it through this one a little bit longer than I intended to do, but hey, not a lot of other podcasts out there right now. So we could fill your week with this a little bit. And also, by the way, I meant to shout out on the last episode, Jordan, somebody at the tweet up was wearing one of the Teardown hats.
Nice.
It was, I think, the first time I'd seen some of the t-shirts, but I don't know if I'd seen one of the hats. So I'm not wearing mine today, but you go to shop.dirtymomedia.com. Of course, if you want to get your Teardown merch for the holidays, we appreciate the support. And yeah, we appreciate you guys still tuning in. We'll have a few more off-season episodes, certainly. And we may have a lot more if there's a trial, but we'll see if that happens. Anyway, thank you as always for listening, and we will talk to you next time on the Teardown. See you, everybody.